All right, so get this. Why are milk cartons, like square but soda cans, are round?
Yeah.
And why does your fridge have a light but not the freezer?
Yeah.
I bet you've never really thought about it.
Right.
But all these little, like, quirks of everyday life,
Uh-huh.
they're actually packed with economic logic.
It's so fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We often overlook these details, but they reveal so much about how things like cost-benefit analysis
Yeah.
and how market forces shape, the world all around us.
Exactly. And today we're going to unpack all this
Okay.
with help from Robert Frank's book, The Economic Naturalist,
Fascinating.
which is all about asking these economic naturalist questions that help us see the hidden economics
Yeah.
behind, well, everything.
Like, think of it as gaining a new lens for viewing the world, right?
Okay.
Understanding how these invisible economic forces shape not only the design of, like, that coffee cup you're holding, but also the prices you pay, and even, like, social behaviors.
Okay. Let's dive into some design mysteries.
Let's do it.
First up, the fridge light. Why illuminate the fridge but leave the freezer in the dark?
Well, the cost of actually installing the light's pretty much the same for both the board.
Right.
But you access your fridge way more often than the freezer.
Uh-huh.
So the benefit of being able to see what's in there
Yeah.
outweighs the cost of the electricity for the fridge, but not so much for the freezer.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Right.
So it's all about, like, finding that sweet spot where the benefits outweigh the costs.
Exactly.
I guess that makes sense with, like, laptop computers, too.
Uh-huh.
Like, they work all over the world with different voltage systems.
Right.
But my fridge is staying put right here in my kitchen.
Yeah, that's a great connection.
Yeah.
Making an appliance adaptable to different voltages adds cost and complexity.
Yeah.
And for a fridge, which is generally not like going on international trips, it's just not worth it.
Right.
With laptops, though, people travel with them all the time. So the benefit justifies the higher cost.
So it's like manufacturers are playing this guessing game, trying to figure out how much adaptability people actually need.
Yeah.
Balanced against the cost.
Absolutely.
But what about something like milk cartons versus soda cans? That can't be about international travel.
Right.
Why the different shapes?
So think about where you usually find them in the store. Right?
Okay.
Milk is in those expensive refrigerated aisles where shelf space is, like prime real estate.
Yeah.
So rectangular cartons fit together nice and snugly, maximizing every inch.
So the shape of the carton is actually dictated by the economics of refrigeration.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever.
Now, soda, on the other hand, is often on, like, cheaper open shelving. There, the focus shifts to how comfortably the container fits in your hand.
Right.
So we get the round can, perfect for gripping.
Wow. So even the shapes of these everyday items have this whole economic backstory. You know, this is making me think about DVD cases, too.
Yeah.
They're so much bigger than CD cases, even though the discs are the same size.
Right.
Is there, like, some economic logic behind that?
There is. It's actually a legacy from the days of vinyl records.
Ah.
Remember those big LP sleeves?
Yeah.
DVD cases were designed to fit on the same retail racks that once held vinyl, saving retailers the cost of, like, new shelving.
So we're still living with the ghost of vinyl records past, huh?
Kind of, yeah.
Fascinating how those decisions from, like, decades ago can still impact us today.
They really do.
All right, let's move on to pricing.
Okay.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Why would a bar give away free peanuts but charge for water?
Right.
It seems counterintuitive.
It might seem strange at first,
Yeah.
but it makes perfect sense from the bar's point of view.
Okay.
Think about what they want you to buy. Drinks.
Right.
Drinks have a high profit margin for them.
Yeah.
Peanuts, salty and delicious.
Yeah.
They make you thirsty. Encourage you to buy more drinks.
So the peanuts aren't really free.
Right.
They're an investment in driving demand for their main product.
Exactly.
Whereas water
is actually competing with their main product.
Oh.
If you fill up on water, you might buy fewer drinks.
Right.
That's why they make you pay for it. It's like a subtle nudge towards their more profitable items.
It's like a hidden economic code influencing our behavior.
Absolutely, yeah.
Speaking of hidden codes, why does Apple charge more for black MacBooks? They're functionally the same as the white ones.
It's a great example of how a color can become a pricing strategy. Black has taken on like an aura of luxury and sophistication.
Yeah.
a status symbol, and people are willing to pay a premium for that.
So it's not just about the product itself, it's about the image and the feelings it evokes.
Totally.
And speaking of pricing strategies, what's the story behind the short at Starbucks?
Yeah.
I hear it's like a secret menu item.
Ah, the elusive short. It's a smaller size, not officially on the menu.
Right.
But those in the know can order it. And it's generally like cheaper than a tall.
Okay.
But what's interesting is the short often has like a richer coffee taste because the ratio of espresso to milk is different.
Yeah. So it's a win-win for those savvy customers who know to ask for it.
Exactly.
To get a better tasting coffee at a lower price.
Yep.
Is there like a name for this type of pricing strategy?
It's called hurdle price discrimination.
Okay.
Essentially, Starbucks is rewarding customers who are willing to jump through a small hurdle, like knowing about and ordering the short with a better deal.
I love that it's like a secret handshake for coffee lovers.
Right.
This is making me rethink how I order my coffee and everything else.
Right.
I'm starting to see these economic forces everywhere I look.
It's everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're cracking a secret code, you know.
Yeah.
What happens when these economic forces bump up against other considerations?
Right.
Like, public health.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's not always about profits and maximizing value.
Yeah.
There are like bigger issues at stake.
Right.
Robert Frank actually talks about the overprescribing of antibiotics.
Yeah, that's a big one.
As an example of where individual incentives can clash with like these public health concerns.
Absolutely, yeah. Doctors know that overusing antibiotics contributes to drug-resistant bacteria,
Right.
which is a huge threat. Right.
Yeah.
But they're also facing individual patients who often demand antibiotics, even for minor illnesses.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot for a doctor to be in.
Yeah, so you have this tension between what's best for the individual patient in that moment
Right.
and what's best for society as a whole in the long run.
Exactly.
It's like those chairs in the park
Oh, yeah?
that Robert Frank uses as an example.
Yeah. The tragedy of the commons. Everyone knows the cherries would be sweeter and juicier if they were allowed to ripen fully.
Right.
But if you wait, someone else might come along and pick them first.
Right. Yeah.
So everyone ends up picking them a bit too early,
Right.
even though it means no one gets the best cherries.
So everyone acts in their own self-interest.
Yeah.
And the shared resource, the cherry tree in this case, suffers as a result.
Exactly.
It's a classic example of how the invisible hand of the market
Yeah.
doesn't always lead to the best outcome.
Right. It's not perfect.
You know, it makes me wonder if something similar is happening with like the gender pay gap.
That's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
Robert Frank actually discusses the pay gap in the modeling industry.
Okay.
But it's not what you might expect.
Okay.
Female models, on average, earn significantly more than male models.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I would have guessed the opposite.
It is kind of counterintuitive, but it comes down to the size of the market.
Okay.
Women's fashion is a much larger industry than men's fashion.
All right.
That means there's more money at stake, which translates into higher pay for the top female models. Yeah. It's not about discrimination. It's about market forces.
So the invisible hand is at work, but it's creating this disparity based on the sheer size of the industry.
Right.
That's fascinating, but also raises some important questions about how those market forces can impact different groups.
Yeah, for sure. Economics is all about understanding those forces and their consequences,
Right.
Both intended and unintended.
Yeah.
And speaking of unintended consequences, it's interesting to think about how much our perceptions influence economic decisions.
You mean how we judge things based on appearances? Like that saying, don't judge a book by its cover?
Well, yeah, it's a bit more nuanced to that. It's about how we interpret signals.
Okay.
Even like subtle ones, to make decisions. Take stock analysts, for example.
Okay.
The book talks about how they rarely recommend selling a stock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because they're always optimistic about the market.
Well, it's not just blind optimism.
Okay.
Think about the pressures they face.
Yeah.
Their employers and clients often have a vested interest in seeing stocks go up.
Right, yeah.
And there's safety in numbers. If everyone is recommending a buy and the stock tanks, no single analyst takes the blame.
So there's a real incentive to stay positive.
Yeah.
Even if it means like downplaying risks.
Right.
It's almost like they're sending a signal, whether they intend to or not.
Exactly. And we see similar signaling at play with something like expensive TV ads. You might think with the rise of like streaming and online content, that TV advertising would be on the decline.
Right.
But companies still spend millions on those big budget commercials.
Because they reach such a huge audience, right?
Yeah.
There's still something powerful about seeing your product advertised during like a major sporting event or something.
Yeah, that's part of it. But it also signals something about the product itself.
Okay.
Think about it. A company is unlikely to invest heavily in advertising a product they know is going to flop.
Right.
So that expensive ad itself becomes a signal of quality, catching our attention and making us more likely to consider the product.
So it's not just about reaching a wide audience.
Wow.
It's about conveying a message about the product's quality and the company's confidence in it.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is really making me think differently about all the advertising I see.
Yeah.
I never realized how much it's like designed to manipulate our perceptions.
Well, it's not always about manipulation. Sometimes it's just about highlighting what the company believes to be true about their product.
Right.
But it's always worth considering those signals and asking yourself why a company is choosing to spend their marketing dollars in a particular way.
Yeah, that's a good point. And speaking of choices, it seems like there's more to our economic decisions than just pure logic. Our emotions and personal values play a role too, right?
Absolutely.
Like with something as simple as shoelaces.
Yeah, we could all be wearing Velcro shoes, but shoelaces have persisted.
Yeah.
Why? Well, think about what tying your shoes represents.
Okay.
It's a symbol of like growing up, becoming more independent. We attach meaning to those like seemingly mundane actions.
So it's not just about practicality. It's about tradition and the emotions associated with a particular act.
Absolutely.
That makes me think about vanity sizing in women's clothing. Like the numbers on the tag seem to have become completely detached from reality.
Right.
Is that just about making women feel better about themselves?
There's definitely an element of that appealing to our desire to see ourselves in a certain way.
Yeah.
But it's also a savvy economic strategy.
Right.
By making women think they're a smaller size, clothing companies are essentially boosting sales.
So it's a win-win for the companies and the customers, at least on the surface.
Yeah.
But it does perpetuate this disconnect between the label and the actual fit of the clothes. It's fascinating how economic decisions are often like this blend of logic and emotion and cultural norms.
It really is. It's what makes this field so endlessly fascinating. There's always more to uncover, beneath the surface.
Yeah. What stands out to you from our discussion so far?
Yeah, it really is a hidden language.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond like, individual products or behaviors. Robert Frank even argues that we can use this economic lens to understand broader like societal trends. He talks about laws and regulations as like a fascinating example.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do laws and regulations fit into this like hidden language idea?
Well, he suggests we can view rules and regulations as data.
Cool.
By observing the rules a society chooses to implement.
Yeah.
We can kind of infer something about its values and concerns.
So like speed limits could tell us something about a society's emphasis on safety.
Right.
Or school uniform policies might reflect like a desire for conformity or a concern about socioeconomic disparities.
Exactly. Think about it. Like, why are there laws against jaywalking in some cities but not others?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Or why do we require child safety seats in cars but not on airplanes?
Yeah.
Each regulation reflects a kind of cost-benefit analysis, weighing the potential risks against the costs and inconvenience of implementing the rule.
It's like a whole other layer of economic thinking embedded in the fabric of our society.
Totally. Yeah.
It makes you realize how much thought goes into even the like simplest rules that we often take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
This entire deep dive has been such an eye-opener. I'm already catching myself looking at everyday things differently, thinking about the economic forces at play.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as the design of a milk carton or the color of a laptop now has like a whole new layer of meaning for me.
That's the beauty of it. Once you start seeing the world through this lens, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
You start to understand the why behind the what.
Right.
And it just makes the world a more interesting and understandable place.
I couldn't agree more. It's like gaining a superpower.
Yeah.
The ability to decode the hidden economic messages all around us.
Well, maybe not a superpower, but it definitely gives you a new perspective and hopefully empowers you to, make more informed decisions.
Yeah.
Whether you're like choosing a product
Right.
or supporting a policy or just navigating your everyday life.
Definitely. And for our listeners, if you want to explore this further, I highly recommend picking up a copy of The Economic Naturalist.
Yeah, it's a great read.
Start asking your own economic naturalist questions and see what surprising insights you uncover.
It's a great way to exercise those critical thinking muscles and start seeing the world in a whole new light.
Yeah.
Who knows, you might even impress your friends with your newfound economic wisdom at your next dinner party.
That's right. Just try not to be too annoying about it. But seriously, folks, keep those economic naturalist questions coming.
Yeah.
The world is full of fascinating economic puzzles just waiting to be solved.
Totally.
Until next time, keep diving.
It's that.